The Castello harvest murders. The real Italian vineyard. Horror that shocked the world. The discovery. Natalie's hands shook as she pointed the flashlight toward the dripping ceiling. The air under the vineyard was thick and sour, filled with the metallic scent of something that didn't belong in a wine cellar. Felix's voice trembled behind her. "Nat, what is that?" In front of them stood rows of barrels, too many for a family vineyard. But what froze Natalie's heart wasn't the barrels themselves. It was the sound coming from one of them, a soft thump, like something alive trying to get out. She stepped closer, her flashlight catching a thin red liquid seeping from a small crack. It wasn't wine. The barrel shifted. A weak hand slammed against the inside. Natalie screamed, dropping the light. In that flash of panic, she saw it. Human eyes staring through a hole in the wood, wide with terror. Then everything went dark. 1 week earlier, Natalie and Felix thought this trip would fix everything. After months of arguing and mistrust, the quiet hills of northern Italy looked like heaven. When they saw the vineyard's sign, Castello di Rossi, a taste of eternity, they laughed, thinking it was just fancy marketing. The owners, Mr. and Mrs. Rossi, greeted them with warm smiles and a glass of the vineyard's famous Crimson Reserve. The wine shimmered like liquid ruby, richer and thicker than anything Natalie had ever seen. "Our family recipe," Mrs. Rossi said proudly, "made with the soul of the harvest." At first, everything seemed perfect. The rooms were cozy, the view stretched over endless vines, and other volunteers from different countries worked beside them, laughing and sharing meals. But on the third night, things began to feel strange. One of the workers, a young man named Mark, didn't show up for dinner. The Rossis said he'd gone home suddenly, but his backpack still sat by his bed. The next day, a storm rolled over the valley. The vineyard's generator went out, and Natalie swore she heard whispers echoing from the cellar beneath the main house. When she mentioned it to Felix, he brushed it off. "You're just spooked," he said. But that night, while everyone slept, she saw Mr. Rossi carrying something heavy down the stairs. He was humming softly, and for a moment, she thought she saw blood on his shoes. Natalie couldn't sleep. The storm howled, lightning flashing through the old stone windows. She decided to follow the sound of dripping water near the hallway, only to realize it wasn't water at all. It was red, and it was coming from the ceiling above their bed. She looked up, her heart pounding, and screamed, "The red drip." Felix jumped out of bed, startled by Natalie's scream. "What's wrong?" he shouted, grabbing her shoulders. She could barely speak. She pointed up at the ceiling, where a dark red stain spread across the plaster. The liquid kept dripping. Slow, steady drops that landed on the sheets, leaving small red circles that looked too much like blood. Felix climbed on a chair and touched the ceiling with a tissue. The color smeared deep red. "It's probably a burst pipe," he said quickly, trying to calm her, but his voice cracked. There was no smell of rusted metal or old water, only that sickly, sweet scent of wine. The same scent that had filled the cellar earlier that day. The next morning, the storm had cleared and sunlight spilled through the vineyard. But the Rossis were acting strangely. Mr. Rossi's smile seemed forced, his eyes darting toward the ceiling every time Natalie entered the room. When she tried to ask about the red stains, Mrs. Rossi brushed it off. "Old house problems," she said with a laugh. "You'll get used to it." But Natalie didn't. Something about this place felt wrong. When she went to check on the other workers, she noticed 2 more were missing. Their beds were neatly made, their suitcases gone. Mrs. Rossi said they had found better jobs in another town. Yet their passports still sat in the small drawer by the kitchen counter. Later that afternoon, Mr. Rossi asked Felix to help him move wine barrels into the cellar. Natalie offered to help, but the old man's tone sharpened. "No," he said quickly. "The cellar is dangerous for visitors. Too easy to get lost." His sudden coldness sent a chill down her spine. That night, while Felix was still downstairs, Natalie decided to look for herself. She took a small lantern and slipped quietly through the hallway. The wooden stairs creaked as she descended, the air growing colder and heat saichosi, veer. She could hear Felix's voice echoing faintly below, but it was mixed with another sound, a low hum, rhythmic and strange, almost like chanting. She reached the cellar door and peeked through the crack. The Rossis were standing beside a large metal table, and Felix was frozen in place, staring at something on it. Mrs. Rossi whispered, "The new batch is almost ready. Tonight we begin the binding." Natalie gasped softly, and the door hinge creaked. Both Rossis turned sharply toward the noise. "Natalie?" Felix called out, his voice shaking. "What are you doing here?" Before she could answer, the lantern slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. The light flickered across the room, revealing what was lying on the table. It wasn't wine. It was a person, the harvest room. Natalie froze, her breath catching in her throat. The body on the table was pale and still, tubes running from its arms into glass bottles filled with the same red liquid they had been calling wine. The sight made her knees go weak. Felix turned to her, his face white as chalk. "Natalie, they're using people," he whispered. Mrs. Rossi's calm smile never faltered. "Now you understand," she said softly, stepping closer. "Our vineyard doesn't just make wine. It preserves life, the essence of it. Each harvest gives us a new blend, one that can never be recreated." Her voice was smooth, almost loving, as if she were explaining a family recipe. Mr. Rossi grabbed Felix by the arm. "You shouldn't have come down here," he said coldly. "This is sacred work." Felix struggled, but the old man's grip was shockingly strong. Natalie ran to help him, but Mrs. Rossi stepped in front of her, blocking the path. "Don't ruin what you don't understand, dear," she whispered. The room filled with the hum of machines, the slow drip of red liquid into the bottles. Natalie's heart pounded in her chest as she looked around. There were more tables, 3 of them, covered by white sheets that barely hid the shapes underneath. She realized the missing workers weren't gone. They were right there feeding the vineyard's secret. Felix shouted, jerking his arm free. "We're leaving!" he yelled, pulling Natalie toward the stairs. But when they reached the top, the door slammed shut, locked. Mrs. Rossi's voice echoed from below. "No one leaves during the harvest." Natalie pounded on the door, screaming for help. The thick stone walls swallowed her voice. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw something move. A figure standing behind the barrels. For a moment, she thought it was another worker hiding. But as the figure stepped forward, she realized it wasn't. It was one of the victims. His eyes were open, but there was no life in them. His skin was pale, waxy, almost translucent, and he moved like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. The tubes still hung from his arms, dripping faintly. Felix stumbled back. "Oh my God," he muttered. The figure turned its head slowly toward them, as if recognizing them. Mrs. Rossi's calm voice floated up from below. "Don't be afraid. The harvest never ends." The figure reached out its trembling hand toward Natalie, its mouth twitching open as if to speak. Then, in a low, broken whisper, it said one word. "Run!" The escape. For a split second, Natalie couldn't move. The pale figure's lips trembled, its cloudy eyes pleading for something she didn't understand. Then, the word echoed again. "Run!" Louder this time, desperate. Felix grabbed her hand and yanked her toward the far corner of the cellar, where a narrow corridor disappeared into darkness. Behind them, Mrs. Rossi screamed, "Stop them!" The sound of heavy footsteps followed as Mr. Rossi chased after them, his cane clattering against the stone floor. The air smelled thick with rot and old wine, and Natalie could hear the hum of the machines growing louder. like the whole vineyard was alive and breathing. They stumbled through the narrow tunnel, the flicker of emergency lights flashing above. The walls were lined with barrels, but these were different. Metal, cold, and humming faintly. Felix paused long enough to peek through one of the glass windows. What he saw made him gag. Inside the tank floated a body, its veins glowing faintly red, connected to tubes that pulsed like arteries. "It's human blood," he whispered. "They're mixing it with the wine." Natalie's stomach turned. The more they ran, the more they realized the tunnel stretched far beyond the vineyard, like an underground maze. Every few feet, she saw old photos nailed to the walls, smiling guests, couples who had once worked the harvest. None of those faces looked familiar now, but something told her they never left. They finally reached a metal door marked Private Reserve. Felix pushed it open, and a gust of cold air hit them. Inside, glass bottles lined the walls, thousands of them. Each bottle had a name written in gold ink, and when Natalie looked closer, her blood ran cold. Her name was on one of them. Natalie Carter, 2016. Harvest. Her breath caught in her throat. "They planned this," she whispered. "From the beginning." Before Felix could